work becomes a monster for you because people have typecasted you for that. So how do you bring to kind of undo that memory on people's mind with bringing something completely off that they do not expect?
And I always cling on the one-liner, having a style is like being in jail. So I like to keep on breaking out of that jail.
Welcome to Cross-Border Conversations. Cross-Border Conversations is a STIR original video series that features talks between thought leaders from across countries, across creative disciplines. Our speakers today come from, if I may say, an immersive creative field where both of them craft artworks and objects that demand a reaction. Thukral and Tagra, the duo behind Thukral and Tagra, first met in 1997, interestingly, during an interaction session at Chandigarh College of Arts, where Jiten, being in the second year, pretended to be an applicant and ragged Sumer, who was applying for a course in undergrad. Having worked as a team from the turn of the millennium, their first formal collaboration was in e-magazine, boastda.com. And since their first show as Thukral and Tagra in 2006, they have been working collaboratively with a wide range of media, including printing, culture, installations, interactive games, video, performance, and design. They create multimodal sensory and immersive environments, working on new format of public engagement. From a pop visual character to a predominantly abstract visual approach, a socio-political commentary has been embedded in their aesthetic for the past 18 years. They have enthusiastically embraced commercial commissions, ranging from interiors to their limited edition can for Pepsi, Benetton t-shirts, and a line of Puma bags, as well as their recent tie-up with watch company Rado that was announced early last year. Recently, they've also been pursuing the practice as a pedagogy through their virtual nursery collaborative with pollinator.io, an interdisciplinary lab, a residency program to bring together creative individuals. The duo who say that the moment we define our practice, we are dead. I welcome Jiten Thukral and Samir Tagra.
Thank you so much.
Conversing with Jiten and Sumer today, we have Maarten Baas. Alumni of Design Academy Eindhoven, Maarten is considered to be one of the most influential Dutch designers, and his work straddling boundaries between art and design. His studio is located in the quaint city of Den Bosch in Netherlands, where he designs furniture, lights, and objects that have a quirky distortion and irregular shapes. He has a fascination for clocks, which is a permanent timepiece placed at Amsterdam's Schiphol airport, for which he painted and repainted the hands of the clock for a straight 12 hours. He is known for his bright-colored handmade industrial clay furniture. But before that, in 2002, with his graduation project Smoke, he had fun burning furniture, charcoaling and preserving it with epoxy resin to make it usable again. His chair and chandelier was picked up by Moi, but I do believe he managed to burn a grand piano for trend forecaster Lee. And these collections have been listed by the New York Times as the top 25 design classics of the future. Having created works for brands like Louis Vuitton, Swarovski, Dior, Moui, and Laswit, among others, his commercial works for chair company Lenswell with the installation, May I Have Your Attention Please, during Salone 2019, did draw a lot of attention. His work is known for being rebellious, playful, intellectual, dramatic, and artistic, and can be found in numerous private and major museum collections such as MoMA and BNA, besides the Carpenter's Workshop Gallery and private collections with Brad Pitt, Kanye West, and Ian Schreiber. Someone who says, I'm an artist born in the body of a designer. Happy to have you with us, Maarten, for Cross-Border Conversation.
They're silent witnesses to the limitless opulent world from the past.
Thank you very much. Agree with Tagra and Thukral that when you define something, like when you define what you're doing, when you put it in a box, then there's no sense of doing it anymore. Like define it, the word fine means also the finish, you know, like it's finished. So and as an artist, you always try to open up something new. You make a new start rather than a finish. And I think also the magic, what you're striving for, is always a bit between the rules. So once you fit in a rule, then it's your job as an artist to make a new rule, and there's not a definition yet for that. So that's why I think, like, at least that's, if I speak for myself, that's why I always try to make a new step, and then almost logically it doesn't fit yet in one of the predefined categories. People want to define things, but that's for me not such a relevant topic. My work is what I want to speak about, and not so much the topic, and not so much the category in which it fits.
There are different references to many different projects, and the most amazing thing is that, you know, the comfortability, the question of comfortability. And we were just writing that thing the other day. The comfortability is a grave for a scared one. An artist must not settle in that. So the moment you are actually comfortable, you're actually defying, you know, there are very few spaces you can actually perform fearlessly. As we actually grow in a political climate, these spaces are also reducing. So if you're in a studio and still scared, that means there is something which you need to unlock. And when we actually saw the projects of yours, I think the first time when we saw was a carpenter's workshop in Paris. The making of a clock is very interesting, because I think for us it is keeping up with the time. You know, because how do you actually resist, or how do you actually give away yourself while the time is moving? You cannot settle. So meaning that, I mean, of course, it's a very simple illustration of, you know, probably the simplest understanding of, like, literally drawing it by hand, you know, connecting the centrality to the coordinates. But the entire gesture of performative exercise also allows you to keep a learning curve. Like, you have to update with the time. So the man behind the clock for us was making his self relevant, because if he does not do anything, he'll become irrelevant with the timeline.
Yeah,
You know?
that's a very nice interpretation indeed. Yeah, I saw this this table tennis table of yours with totally an irregular shape, and that was for me also referring to what we just say, like the definition, like defining things. Yeah, it's almost a symbol that things fit in a square, you know, just a square as a table tennis table, and by opening up those borders, you can play exactly the same game, and and the reality is never straight and rectangular. It's the reality is always kind of unexpected and organic. That's what I really liked about this project of yours. How did you? Because it was part of a bigger theme, but how was that for you?
So my dad is an artist, but his passion is wrestling. So so he has we have a family gym. It's like a local akhada where people go there and they do gymming every day. So I used to go with my dad, but I used to hate going there. So I never entered the ring where they do the wrestling every day. I dealt with any sports equipment in my life, but I was more curious about the participation. What are the rules of the games? So why we play, who wins, why he wins, or something like that. So on the other side, Sumer is very good in table tennis, and he broke his right wrist. So then he was playing with the left hand. So after that, he can play with both hands. So that's a funny part of the background. But
But interestingly, I mean, both of us had this very funny anecdotes about the idea of play in sports. And the table tennis came out of as a conversation. The table tennis tables are a very interesting analogy to a very large understanding of our life. That the table tennis matches our lifespan, and a ball is a person like you, and which is constantly pushed between the left and the right, which is the negative and the positives. The net becomes the threshold, and what we do is constantly hover around. Our lifespan is one match. So that's where it actually began. And if we sit on this little hypothesis, we trying to expand this horizon to the mythology, to our social connections, to our family relationships, and so on.
And since you are like what Thukral is saying, actually the act of wrestling or the act of playing is almost the inspiration also to work on those projects, because of also the wrestling was also part of the same exhibition, I think. And is there also a link between the act of playing and the act of making your own work? Do you see a reference there?
Yes, I mean, like the studio is the active playground of an artist. So when you fail and when you play, it's no more seen as a success measurement, but rather seen as a sandboxing. That when Maarten is doing something with the failures are so beautiful that the new range is already out, coming in. But just that this is the negotiation which we normally land up doing. I think this is what the pleasure of being in the studio is, that you may have lots of ideas to begin with, but sometimes the physicality of it or the action of doing tends to move something completely different. And it is just that negotiation about which side to process and what is the scale of it. I think it changes the entire outcome completely. Yeah.
To just technically work, because there are a lot of illustrations in it. Do you both make them, or how does it work when you work in when you make a new work?
This is the largest space where we actually perform mostly the larger works, and because when we don't sell the works, we just keep it and surround ourselves with those things.
Are these your works as well?
Yes, yes.
Ah, cool. Very nice.
And so all the works, I mean, these are like nothing is thrown away. We try to recycle as much as we can. And this is the kind of a studio space where we inhabit. The stone pieces, what you saw, was a part of the entire landscape. So we don't really have any furniture anymore. I mean, it's just everything is an object then.
Yeah, very nice.
And you can see the references of table tennis, but also in a very abstract way, that we started cutting a table tennis table and chopping into different parts.
Yeah. Very cool.
Or a bookshelf, or like a side table, and of course keep them with our sculpture pieces or something which is extremely valuable in terms of its material or in terms of its the scale. Which is also kept with something which is found object of our love. In travels we've been actually putting things together. So the furniture pieces is holding up a sculpture which is also historic, and kind of a discourse opens up from that perspective. Why Gandhi is looking towards the wall, looking through a void, and the two partitions look through a painting, which is again a hefty example of our unrealized dream. So that's how the entire exhibition within a studio space takes purpose. So this is a space where we paint, and so which is very different from studio where we are sitting right now, which is just a space, just a room with computers.
And they're close to each other, the two studios?
Yes, just 5 minutes away.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, since we live here, so we can actually walk down in the middle of the night, and it's the place where we just silently work. So there is no sound to the works. It sounds
Cool.
like nobody talks, and yeah, I mean, this is just an insight toward to what we normally like kind of share our day in. That mostly we are actually here, and then we actually move into the other space, and vice versa. Like it's also like 3 to 4 works are always in the process, because I mean we are visual artists trained to make paintings and make money, and then so that whatever money we make, we turn into a sculpture piece.
Yeah.
So that's how it works. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, nice.
you
And you
know,
work with the two of you, or is there also do you also have staff working with you?
we have a studio where 2 assistants of ours work with us.
Okay.
But also it's such a relationship by now. Like from last 15 years, we've grown up together, and everybody's families and everybody's kind of social responsibilities in terms of also there's lots of learning to work with the group in that sense.
Yeah. I see.
So that's how I mean, just quite quickly running down these images.
So you can see this is a half-done painting. It's a first coat happened.
So it'll take us 2 months plus to develop one work. And
This is again the table tennis table, no?
yes,
they are table tennis.
yeah. So
Yeah. It's very nice.
yeah, this is something which is happening right now in the studio. So we actually went to click the pictures, so that it's an interesting way to kind of process it. And being here, like visually also, it is interesting to do a virtual studio visit, which is also interesting. Yeah, so I mean, these are just pictures. I'm going to randoms. So we always knew that the money, whatever it is coming, has to be valued. So we did not really spend so much of money, but rather whatever we used to earn, whenever we used to like save it and kind of like do in a very frugal understanding also at the same time, like living with less. And but yeah, I mean, this is a question. It is valid for a practice like yours, I think, because you have to develop something over a pressure at the same time, right? Because they are expecting something to be launched by like Salone or any larger exhibition. How do you kind of get hold of that artist mind to kind of develop into a designer's ritual? You see.
On one end, I'm privileged that well, my work sells well, and the gallery is yeah, I work with a good gallery indeed, Carpenters, and that allows me also to kind of make more freedom here and there. But still, it's always a struggle to keep the balance between the two. Sometimes I even use that as a theme in my work. The balance between being commercial or being being totally autonomous, and where are the two meeting each other, because of it's both in your character anyway. So you also the commercial side is also a part of your autonomous side, so to say.
Thinking about that, where what is the kind of where do you start? Like if you want the things to be very different, as a rival, you will not choose the same ingredients to cook the food for other material. You see what I'm trying to say? That when we want a different taste altogether of a food, the ingredients we choose has to be very different. But when we actually start from a design classic, which is already have a hegemony or kind of an understanding of its ethos, like how do you actually depart from there and move into a new discourse? Like it's something interesting to kind of think about.
I just look around and I see where I'm more attracted to, like a theme or a certain thing what happens, or a certain pattern that I see, and then I think like, I would like to make something about it, and then as a result my discourse is is changing, but it's not really that I deliberately choose to change my direction or so. It's rather unpractical. I think you know as well, because of you always have to reinvent the wheel, diving into new techniques, diving into new ways of working. But I always think like, this is something which I would like to express, depending also on the context, you know, like sometimes you got a certain assignment and then you think like, oh, this is the assignment. How can I play with that? How are the references? And then this is the best answer to that. And then it happens to be that you work with video rather than wood, or you work with a performance rather than a sculpture. So it very much depends how that develops. For instance, recently it's this theme of social media and that everybody has a platform, so to say, to express themselves, and on the other way around, also everybody can see everything. So the audience is very all over the place, but also the performer, or the one who spreads the message, comes from everywhere. Everybody, you don't need to be a television star anymore to make a message, but everybody can spread their opinion. And as a result, you can hear everybody's opinions. So I kind of like that the transaction between the two. Like attention becomes almost a value, you know. Like it's almost like money. Like I give you attention, you give me attention, and we swap it. It's almost a currency. So yeah, that was also the theme of a few works that I made recently. But that's like, I see that happening. I think like, ooh, I would like to make something with that, and then it. Well, I'll show you also the things that I did with that. So this is, for instance, the "May I Have Your Attention, Please" installation with all the speakers, through which I had whispering voices saying all kinds of messages, either a commercial message, or a poem, or a recipe, or another opinion. And that became one installation, and you could not even hear what was exactly said, because it was just a lot of whispering voices through each other. So that was one way of expressing that. And I think a few slides later, I have also this one. And how do you do that? How do you go from one work to the other and one subject to the other?
So by this time, actually, we've developed this understanding about doing a research and kind of like going into the depth and then peeling off one kind of a knot where we can spin it to a point where it's a different way to question the reality. It's a different way to kind of question how things have been given to us. And in between, even if we fail, we try to kind of keep it to a point where the practice actually can be moved and revisited, or the project can be revisited. So there are lots of interesting projects which actually take forever. It is that pressure of practice at the same time, you see, that your own work becomes a monster for you because people have typecasted you for that. So how do you bring to kind of undo that memory on people's mind with bringing something completely off that they do not expect?
Yeah.
How does Maarten Baas crosses Maarten Baas expectations to become a new, better version of Maarten Baas, you see?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like I totally relate to that. Like I think I have been artistically traumatized, so to say, by my smoke furniture. Because that the burnt furniture, maybe I also have to show that on the split screen, although I think you know this famous zigzag chair, for instance, that was one of the smoke pieces, which I set afire and then you had the burnt version, which was the new zigzag chair by Rietveld. And I did this with a lot of design classics, and also a piano and this Gaudi chair. This is in a museum exhibition where they were all on display. I don't want to talk too much about it, but anyway, that was my graduation work. And that became famous right away. And well, of course, a dream start. But really, literally 1 week after my graduation, people were already saying to me, like, could you do anything else than burning furniture? So that's kind of like, on one hand, of course, I was grateful for the success and I wanted to use that success. But it was the only thing on my portfolio because I was just graduated. So I was only asked by people who said like, "Oh, I would also like to have a burnt chair," or something like that, you know. So I couldn't go out of that, and people only expected burnt pieces from me. The clay furniture series, very colorful. If I would make, it was in bright red, bright green, bright yellow, brown, black, white, and then people would say, like, if they would see the black clay furniture piece, they would say like, how did you burn this one, you know? So even when a totally different design was still black, they would think it was a burned piece. Anyway, I think from because of that, I was even more triggered, like, I will come up with something completely else than what it was. And also with the clocks, that became also quite a famous project. And I also want to kind of, yeah, well, for me, that's a very important series and I like it. And yeah, well, it's a mature piece of work, but I also like to kind of do totally the opposite and keep on refreshing myself, because that's also the only way I motivate myself. Like it's nice to make another thing in the same theme or whatever. And sometimes I see also other artists doing that, very disciplined. I think sometimes also under the pressure of their gallery, who says like, you have to be recognizable, you have to be a brand, you have to be in one style. And I always cling on the one-liner, having a style is like being in jail. So I like to keep on breaking out of that jail, and then as a result, the style, and I think it's also for you, your style becomes that you're always reinventing yourself.
About how we can actually like move out of our palette. People actually have typecasted the ideas of, you know, work for an artist from this one particular suit. So if you see the marble wings were actually like tried to build up to a scale where they are monumentous in their own way, and it landed up standing in finally in Hawaii, which is like looking into the ocean, which is a complete infinite understanding of life. We will also show you that certain materials which is completely non-resonated, like the first time when we exhibited massively large wings in a gallery, people just ignored it and walked through it. You know, so it's interesting that the work actually becomes a visiting card, and how people want to see it, and they would like to frame you in that particular time lapse. It's interesting because how do you break away from your own burden?
Yeah.
I mean, it takes like 20 people to lift it by hand, and the scale is 28 feet, 14 feet each side, and then keeping one feet in middle, you know, as a distance.
Yeah.
And where it actually stands is a different context altogether. But the interesting thing is about the materials actually have actually started defining lots of new things. So nobody can actually expect the gray color. Literally no value in terms of the color or a hue, but which is related to our sort of body work. But this is where it is. We try to change it and push it and define it again and again, and we
very
nice. Ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very. What is it made of? Is it concrete?
It is marble chips from the top, and there
Ah,
is a structure. So ideally, it was made to be in granite as a temple stone. But since we actually measured it and made it in 3D to begin with, and we realized that the weight will be so much that we will never be able to turn it any which way. So that's how it landed up into a dream in making. So lots of people made the dream too. Like these are called the arrested image of a dream.
yeah, the heavy wings.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very great. Yeah, nice. Uh, you're saying like you're breaking out of the conventions that people expect from you, and the wings are almost symbol for that breaking out.
Man has this, the human being has this idea of like flying because he
Yeah,
cannot fly. So there are again and again there are more versions, more higher flights. SpaceX, go as fast you can go. These are all coming from a simple insecure or kind of no capacity of a human mind, which is that, or a human body, which is you cannot be a bird or you cannot take a flight.
yeah,
Uh, so it's a very interesting thing that the notion about flying actually has been reoccurring in the body of work. And now the two wings becomes like two different partners flying, trying to fly, failing, trying to fly again.
yeah,
And so we fly our parents' dream, and then our children will fly our dreams. You see, so
yeah.
the chain reaction.
And what I personally also see in it, it's so much decorated, like and people tend to decorate themselves or to possess objects to have as much as possible to keep it, whereas the actual dream is to fly, so to be as light as possible, to be free of any burden. And it looks like those wings are heavy because of all the possessions that are attached to it. At least that's what I see when I don't know if that relates to what you also meant with it, but that's how I would interpret the word. I will show you one where it makes me think of a work of my own, which I can show. Just a moment, and I will split again. Which is another form of a dream, which is called Forever Young. And that's this one.
Interesting.
Like the slide, which I actually metaphorically would bring you back to your youth again. Like Peter Pan, you always want to stay in the yeah, also kind of the freedom. Like you want to stay as free as you were as a child. So this slide would bring you in this line of eternity. So
Yes.
that and somehow this also makes me think of your table tennis table. Like it's kind of you have this archetypical shape of a slide in this case, or in your case of the table, and by playing with the shape you can express something else. So
I mean,
that's what make me think of it.
every time you take a step and then you do a slide, when you come back, every time you'll be a little older.
Yeah. Yeah, until you fly out.
Until you die or fly out, or kind of like get out of that uh, the hamster wheel exercise. You see. So,
Yeah. It's it was actually for Milan two years ago. It was called the exhibition. The theme was called wellness, and no, I don't know. It was about feeling good. Something. So I thought, like, well, that's an example in which I brought the briefing of the theme of the exhibition into my interpretation to it. It was a part of a bigger playground with all kinds of things which played with the idea of like being forever young, like a mature playground, so to say. So I didn't. It's never really executed as a playground. Now I'm I have a proposal here in the Netherlands to make something similar for a playground. Later on this month I hear whether or not that's accepted. Jurgen Bij, people who know Dutch design a bit and Droog design especially know Jurgen Bij as well. And he thought I was a very bad designer, and always when I made my presentations, I made a little movie around it, and he said, like, I actually like your presentation movie better than what you actually present. He said, like, you're much better in that. The funny thing is actually that the clocks become a kind of a blend between design and video. So there, actually, he still could say that he was right in the sense, like, it's more a film than a design product. So there I found a kind of the niche world in between where I belong. But apart from that, like, I just like to play around every now and then with a short movie. Often it's filmed by the same cameraman who also always films my clocks. So sometimes it's just an in-between thing. Sometimes it's just a small idea that I have, and I say, like, hey, shall we film something like this? And then I have a particular idea of how I can make a little movie. With the coronavirus, everything was standing still, and I thought, like, oh, I would like to make some little videos around it. Also for Christmas, I made a few, and it doesn't ever end up anywhere. It's just for my own fun, basically, and I never did it I never sold one of those videos, or I never intended to sell it even, but it's just on the sideline I do those kind of things, and they always have another theme.
Hello, this is Maarten Baas from my studio in the Netherlands, and this is how I cope with the current situation. Well, so obviously, I hope you feel inspired. All the best.
With the corona, I actually used it because of everybody always asks the same questions about, like, ooh, how do you cope with the corona virus?
The electronic media, as we actually walk into this sort of a little space in our lives where we can try to reinvent, relook, reboot, whatever we want to call it. But for us, it was more of like a disembarking from a real long flight. So this is a kind of a little empty station where you are stuck with your loved ones in the same area, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. And sometimes you kind of get frustrated, but sometimes you come out with really something one of its kind. Also, you want to constantly develop something new. So to give your body, to give your mind, and to your eyes some kind of purpose, we thought that a long project which we've been building, it's an interdisciplinary lab, which is different from our practice, which is that our practice is about a dialogue between both of us and a curator and a space. So this is a lab where we allow a lot of other collaborations to happen.
Yeah.
And the collaborations are actually talking about something which is learning from each other. So we call it like a pollinator, as pollinating agents. And the pollinator has 3 or 4 projects way back. It started in 2016, and now it has actually developed into a very interesting way of doing, which is a complete digital virtual nursery. So prior to this, we actually did a project where we were collecting objects of hate and giving people a haircut. And this is something which is interesting, because we wanted to kind of like let people submit their hate, and we will exchange it and redeem it as a haircut, which is literally giving yourself and submitting yourself to a barber. So something which has happened. And so these are the kind of project which allow a lot of people else to actually walk into the project. And the objects which we have been collecting are really interesting in terms of why do people hate certain objects, to get rid of these things.
It's almost a political direction you go to, and it's not so much anymore the visual art, but it's really an engaged new direction actually. So
Yes.
that's
A lot of our projects are based on a public engagement where people come and participatory. So we want to, some projects we thought we are unable to do with our name, because the name is attached and then certain aura is attached. So we want to detach ourselves. So more people can be participate into that. So that was the idea of the,
How can your work cannot talk about the situation around, when you're actually actively looking into these things. So the creating of a work becomes just another mirror, because you're fueled by these information, I think, projects, like looking into these things every time are important too. And it is very obvious for us to respond to these things. I don't think so. I have this imagery of the same chair mass produced like 30 times in any imagery. Even if they look one of its kind, because the idea is very hand sculpted. So the artisanal understanding, or kind of like revolt, or kind of like looking into making of something which is done with your heart rather than seen as a dead industrial process. You see, so that is a very interesting commentary on after the burned sort of an exercise. I mean, to me, the burning of these hegemonies is also extremely political.
But that's what I mean. Like, I leave it to others kind of to make that content. I work from intuition and from what I see, and I think like this is an accurate reflection of what I think is happening around me, and it can be in my direct environment or on a more global scale. I speak through my works, and from there on it's picked up. But since it comes from my heart indeed, and since it comes from intuition, and it's being made in this world today, it always will reflect to the reality of today. So in that sense, it's indeed it also finds its way in political environment. I like it to really see other ones' approaches. To be honest, like the setup of this meeting was by you, the idea like to have artists talking with each other about the work as if they're just talking with each other. But I must say I rarely have these kind of talks with artists, because there's not so often this. I either know the artist already personally very well, so no sense to have such a conversation, or you're not in the moment. If you're on a cocktail party or so, you're not going to have a talk like this. So it's a unique opportunity to be kind of forced into a conversation, which is so nice to do. So I really enjoyed it.